Hey everyone, this is Lisa and Bonnie with Moving Mountains Property Group, and we are here today with Joe Farris, who owns Farris Home Inspections. We thought it would be a good idea to do a video that concerns questions that we get a lot about home inspectors.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So I've been doing home inspections since 2007, and I started my career as a carpenter, and later got into that kind of progressed into me becoming a general contractor around 2006. And then I had a friend of mine get a home inspection, and I looked at their home inspection report around that time, and I thought, oh my gosh, I think I would really enjoy doing this. So I did some online training and then took it was different back then, but went and took the licensure exam in Raleigh, and then after that received my license, and that took me probably almost 2 years to do that.
Wow.
Once I did see learn about home inspectors and then actually become one. So anyway, but that was me. I took my time. There's quicker ways to do it now. And so I started the business around that time, 07, 08. And at the time I was also still doing general contracting work. And then I became more and more busy. So I decided I just wanted to do home inspections only, and I really enjoyed it. And so that's kind of how I got started. And now the business has grown, and now we have, including myself, there's 4 home inspectors. And then now we have an office manager, where I used to be the office manager and the home inspector, and I did everything. So it's been really neat to see it grow over the years, and it's been really exciting too.
Shout out to Martha,
Yeah.
the lady in the office. No, she's amazing. she gets customer service, and she's extraordinary with the customers. When people call in, she really is.
The secret is she actually runs the business, honestly.
Yeah, so. I believe that.
She just makes me look good. I mean, she actually runs the business. I can't really take credit. She's incredible.
You need good people behind you, to run a business, incredible. Especially with multiple folks working. So I think Lisa and I were just going to go through a list of questions that we get from clients and kind of ask those of you. And I guess I'll take the first question, which you kind of explained already, what it takes to get, to become a home inspector. I guess it's, kind of like real estate. You take a class and, you pass a state exam and get your license. Is it similar to that?
Yeah, it's actually changed, I think, a little bit since when I got my license. When I got my license, having a general contractor's license was one of the requirements, I was actually able to take the exam because I had a general contractor's license, but it's different now. It takes more than that now. Now they want you to do a board approved 120 hours in a classroom setting, and then another additional 80 hours in the field. And there's a lot of different programs out there where if a home inspector is interested in becoming a home inspector, you can go into these different programs. There's a lot of different schools out there that have these programs. So that's what you have to do now. And then they get you ready to take the exam. You have to pass, probably with the real estate exam, you have to pass the exam before you're licensed. So there's a little bit more to it now. And so it's been evolving over the years.
So is sorry, Lisa, is a general contractor's license a requirement, or
not anymore?
Is that just, okay.
No. And I don't think it ever was just explicitly that. I think that, at the time when I got mine, I was able to get in because I had a contractor's license. But I think if you didn't, you could do the trainings instead. But now I think you have to do the trainings whether you're a general contractor or not.
Okay.
But no, you do not have to be a general licensed contractor. It helps, but you don't have to have that.
Okay, that's helpful. So I guess if you hire an inspector that is a general contractor, that's kind of maybe a step above just a regular home inspection license. Having that background knowledge too. So that's
it definitely helped me a lot having that background knowledge. And I was being a carpenter, and then also when I was a contractor, I was a remodeling contractor. So that really helped me a lot with knowing what was behind the scenes, what was, if there was a remodel going on, or if somebody had added an addition onto a house. It gave me kind of an awareness if it was built correctly, and I know how builders can cut corners, and so it definitely helped me a lot. And it also helps me as I do train the guys that I have now, and a couple of the guys that I have now are not they don't have a general contractor's license, but they're great home inspectors. And it really helped me train them to look for, because I had that experience and now they have that eye too. But yeah, it definitely helps if a home inspector has some construction experience. It definitely helps.
Okay.
And that's a common misconception I know that I get with buyers is they do think that they are general contractors when they're home inspectors. So that's such a good question so that, people can know that is not the case. Okay, so I will take the next one. And the next question is, do home inspectors note that all the systems in the house are not up to modern day building code when they are inspecting?
That's a really good question. I get that question a lot. And so what it comes down to, and we are trained this way, we are not code inspectors. And I think there's a misconception that we are not like the county code enforcement officials that come out and inspect a house as it's being built. Now with that, a lot of the things that we're looking for do parallel the codes. A lot of times you could say, hey, that's a code. And we have to say, well, we're not allowed to say it's a code, but it is kind of a code because our list, we go by the standards of practice that the state of North Carolina gives the home inspectors, and that's what we have to go by. So that's standards of practice, and it's on our website if any of your clients ever want to see it and have any questions. That tells exactly what we do inspect and what we don't inspect. But that standard of practice was designed by the board in North Carolina, which is through the Insurance Commission, and so which also has a lot to do with general contractors. So there's a lot of similarities, but we're just not allowed to start. We see a good example is I can't go into a 1950s built home and start calling out 2021 codes. I can't do that. That we start doing that, that's just going to open up way more than that's necessary. So that's why we have our list. It's more looking for life safety, making sure things are built correctly, that kind of thing. But a lot of it really falls back on life safety. Really, we're there just to make sure that, for fire safety, anything like that, carbon dioxide poisoning, things like that. At the end of the day, that's why we're really there, just to make sure, like decks being built where they're not going to fall off the house or, that kind of thing. So and that's where a lot of our points of inspection, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, because I think, a lot of times if you're, inspecting an older home, there may not be like ground fault circuit interrupters in wet areas. And, as a buyer's agent, that's kind of a safety issue for the buyer. And you bring that up, and then sometimes you get pushback from the other agent, saying, well, that's code now, but it wasn't, the time that this home was built, it wasn't required. And so it's interesting hearing you say that.
That's a good point, Bonnie, because that is a good example of when, it sounds like we're bringing out a new code, but we're bringing out what's on our list. And we're saying, hey, we like to see GFCIs here because we know it can save a life.
Right.
And that's where, it mimics the 2021 codes, but at the same time, it's something that we have to call out that we can't call a code, but we're calling it out because we're licensed home inspectors, and we're required to say, hey, I really like to see you get a GFCI here so a child or somebody doesn't get electrocuted. So,
which is the most important thing is safety,
mm-hmm.
In my opinion, for, our clients and for everyone that goes into the house. So.
Absolutely.
So I guess I will take the next question. And the question is, what are the limitations to a home inspection? What kind of limiting factors are there, when you're going out to an inspection that maybe would limit your ability to, see things and that sort of thing?
Of course, if we go into a house, well, one thing that comes to mind is if there's a room that's locked up, or sometimes people have their basement, that if the basement's accessible only from the outside and we get there and there's a deadbolt or something on it or a lock and we can't get in, that definitely would limit us. So usually in that situation, we try to start calling and trying to find the homeowner so we can get in if they're not there. Also, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, we're not allowed to move furniture we're not even allowed to touch anything. And the reason for that is it's a liability. If I move a painting or something and I drop and break it and I find out that's a $10,000 painting, or we're not supposed to move anything. So what really helps us is if the seller is aware that we're coming, and let them know that, if you have moving boxes in the way, or clothes everywhere or whatever, just so we can see all the walls, be able to get to all the outlets, just to be able to see everything. That helps a lot. But I said moving boxes because we do go into a lot of homes and people are moving because the house is being sold, but then there's moving boxes everywhere. I've gone in the garages before and I can't even get in there because there's just moving boxes everywhere. Well, I can't inspect that garage. Whatever's in that garage, that took away my inspection there. Same thing with basements. So just letting the seller know that, hey, the home inspector's coming. He really needs to see and get in every room and see every wall and every ceiling and floor, and make it as tidy as you can. That really benefits your client because that means they're going to get that much better of a home inspection.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because so many clients that I have also, they don't understand that you cannot move items. So I think that's definitely a good one to hit on. That was actually one of our later questions, so we've already got that answered.
Another question related to that is if like maybe the house is vacant and the water is shut off, are you all allowed to turn on, the water, or somebody else has to do it? Like if it's just a matter of, turning on a valve.
We are not supposed to do that. Any home inspector that pulls up to a home and the water's off, I know it sounds crazy. We're not even supposed to turn the water on. But I have to say a lot of times I will. And a lot of, we kind of look around the house and we just make sure there's not going to be anything that's going to result from us turning the water on, and we're just very cautious. But to keep from causing such a hassle, because we get a lot of homes and the water shut off. So I don't want to have to try to track down the seller if they're at work and then try to interrupt the real estate agents. So if we kind of make a judgment call, and then if we feel like it's going to be safe, and sometimes, a lot of times we'll call the listing agent and say, okay, is it okay if we turn this water on? Do we have your permission and the homeowner's permission? We do that a lot of times. Once we have permission, we'll do it. But there definitely are times when we just have a bad feeling about turning the water on, and we're not going to do it. And most of the time when it's a brand new home, new construction, we're not going to do it because we don't know if the plumbers are finished. We don't know if normally when we're definitely not going to do it. And we always try to triple check before we go to a new construction home that the builder does have the water on for us. And with that, if I can add, another thing we run into with new construction a lot is the heating system hasn't been turned on yet. Any of that stuff we're not going to touch because a lot of times, like the heating system as an example, they have to do their startup. And if you go in and turn it on before they have done their startup, you could damage the system. So we have to be really cautious with new construction.
Yeah, so this isn't on our list of questions, but it's a question kind of talking about new construction. Do you think that it's a good idea? I mean, I personally do, but as a home inspector, do you think it's a good idea for buyers to have new construction inspected? Because, a lot of times I hear from, the other side, like if I'm working with a buyer that, oh, well, it's met, the county or city code, and I don't know why you're going to get a home inspection done. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Why do we? But absolutely, I 100% definitely agree. Yes, you definitely need to get. I'm a big advocate for that, to get a home inspection on a new construction home.
Joe, another question that we get a lot from buyers is who pays for the home inspection and what are the typical costs?
The home inspection is always going to be paid by the client. And so the typical cost, it's going to range, a smaller home, it's probably going to range, from $300 to up to $500-$600, depending on the size of the home. We also charge a little bit more when it's older because it takes us a little bit longer. But we always make it really easy for the client to pay. They can pay online, they can pay over the phone with credit card, or they can pay at the inspection with a check. And there's times when we'll do a payment at closing, but we'd rather not do that because we've kind of been burned by that in the past. I think a lot of home inspectors have, and that's why they stopped doing it. If the house never makes it to closing, we don't always get paid. And so that was kind of hard to swallow. I've actually had that happen a few times. And so we really try to get payment. We don't require them to pay before we show up to the inspection, but usually before we release the report, we require payment. Most of the time it's no problem. We rarely have any problems with it. Maybe a couple times a year, we may have somebody that doesn't pay us, but we do hundreds of inspections, so that's not a bad ratio.
So a question that's not really on our list, but I wanted to throw out there. So you guys also offer radon inspection testing. What is typically the cost for doing a radon test on a home?
We charge $120.
Okay.
And And it's never going to really change from that unless we have to drive, more. Normally, if we have to drive more than, say, 45 minutes or an hour, we'll charge a little bit more for a travel fee. And then if there's usually more than one structure on the property, say if there's like a guest house, we just did this week, a guest house and a home, we always recommend getting both, because really it just takes, each structure should have its own radon test. And it's a weird thing with radon, because one house could not have it, and then the next door neighbor could have high levels. You just never know until you test. So we just always recommend each structure, if there's separate structures on the property, to get each one of those tested, and that would be a little bit more expensive if you do that.
Okay. Thanks for that.
I want to add a different question about radon that I get a lot, that's also not on here. A lot of buyers don't understand about the machines. Like I had the other day, someone asked me if they have to be calibrated or serviced every so often. Do they?
Every year, actually. I just sent 2 off to be calibrated. So that just ensures that they're working properly. And so, yep, every year we have to do that. And you can actually see on the report, the radon report will tell you whether or not the machine needs to be calibrated, or it'll say, it'll have the calibration date. So if it's been a year.
That's good.
If you hire somebody to do a radon test and you see that calibration date is passed, you can say, hey, I think, let's do a retest because it was not calibrated. And that's definitely warranted to do that, because they're supposed to be calibrated every year.
Okay.
Good question.
All right. Am I up next?
You're up, Bonnie.
Okay. So the question is, are all home inspection reports the same? You come out, you do the inspection, you generate a report for the client. Do they all look the same, or, are they different depending on the inspector that you use?
They're going to be different depending on which software provider the inspector goes with. Now we have to, in North Carolina, we have to report on the same findings. We have that standards of practice that we have to go by. So you can always expect the same inspection, but the report may look a little different. I've always used Home Gauge because that report software is pretty common in this area, and also the person who created that software program lives here in Asheville and used to be a home inspector here in Asheville. So that was kind of neat to have them close by, and if I ever had a problem, to go to them. But I have definitely seen other home inspectors use different reports. The good news is they're always going to say pretty much the same thing. They just may look a little differently. You may have to click different links to get into different parts of the report. It could be kind of confusing depending on which one you're used to. But yeah, some of them will look different.
Okay, thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
So with the next question is, do home inspectors offer re-inspections after the sellers have made repairs?
Yes, absolutely. And we get that a lot. And I think it's wise. I mean, especially if you're asking the seller to do the repairs and you're not going to do them, if the buyer's not going to do them themselves. I actually highly recommend that when we're doing the inspection, because I can't tell you how many times I come back and find that the seller has hired someone that did not do the repairs correctly. And it's rare when we go back and do a reinspection and we're not calling out repairs that still need to be fixed. So it definitely would give you peace of mind knowing that whether or not the repairs were done correctly or not. And I've had some people call me 2 or 3 times, and I go back out to the house to reinspect over and over back behind the contractors again, because they just weren't doing it right.
Right.
So I highly recommend that, because if you're not fixing if we go do a home inspection and we call out all these repairs, and then they're not getting fixed correctly, then it's like they didn't do the repairs at all. I mean, the house still is under, could be a life.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the cost for that reinspection typically?
Well, if you want the report with it, I think we charge around 150 to 175. Okay. Usually cheaper if you don't want to report, if you just want a verbal, let's say, and yes or no, they did this right, if it's like one repair. But a lot of times it's going to be, 10 plus repairs that we're looking at. So you kind of want that report, and we kind of go through and tell you pass or fail. And then we'll leave a comment if we feel like what we felt like should have been done to make the repair correct. So anyway, you're usually around 150, 175.
That's pretty reasonable. I mean, just for that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, if later on you don't do that and you find out the repair has to be made, you could spend thousands of dollars depending on what the repair was. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So another question that we get from buyers is, do we need to be at the home inspection? Do we need to be present during the inspection?
I recommend it. And what I normally say, I always tell people, you're welcome to come for the whole inspection, the whole time we're there, which we're going to be there for a few hours. And I just request to, maybe give the home inspector a couple hours to do their thing. And then at the end of the inspection, we definitely want to do a walkthrough with you, and then we can go through and show you everything if we found anything wrong with the home. And then we also, it's very informative. We like to tell you where your main water shutoff is. We talk to you about the heat system that you have, about your filters for your heat system and that kind of thing. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Not everyone can come to the home inspection, and that's why our reports are also so thorough, and I feel like are very informative too. But if your client can make it to the inspection, yes, it's great to have them show up and let us walk through and show them everything. I think that really speaks volumes after they're finished with the home inspection process.
I think if they do come too, it's a good idea to also have that conversation that they should not keep interrupting the home inspector. Because I think they can be distracted. I think me too. I know I can be distracting, can I, Joe? So I think talking away. So I think it's also a good idea, to have that conversation, to definitely let the home inspector be there for a couple of hours with the house themselves, because it is, when you get there, hard not to talk and, be distracting while you're trying to have someone inspect a home that you're getting ready to buy.
Yeah, I always tell the clients, yeah, if you give the inspector space, because if you don't, he's not going to be able to focus, and it's going to take away from a good home inspection for the client. So yeah, the more time you can give the inspector the focus, the better. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's good information. Lisa, I think you're.
Yep, I'm up. So are all home inspectors also general contractors? I think we already covered that. So now we know that is not necessarily the case. Okay, so let's get to the next one. Can you pay extra to have an outbuilding or accessory dwelling inspected?
Yes, we actually do that often. We do a lot of, outbuildings. Some people want the shed, the barn. They just want to make sure that it's structurally safe to go into, and that happens a lot. At least weekly, we do that. And there's a lot of detached garages, and we run into a lot of detached garages with apartments on top and that kind of thing. So. Yeah, we actually do that. And sometimes I have to kind of give a quote for that. It depends on the situation, because there's so many odd different buildings out there, and I have to think about how long it's going to take the inspector. It's never as much as the home, but it's usually anywhere from $150 to $200 extra. If it's a really small building, it might just be like $75. It just depends on how long it's going to take us, because we always add that to the report too. So you have that in your report and everything that needs to be repaired on the building.
Awesome.
I think we already asked.
Yep, you got that one.
And then doing a walkthrough after the inspection. Lisa, I think that was your question. Was that kind of addressed?
Yeah, I think we've already addressed that one as well.
Okay. The last kind of question that we have from clients is how long does a home inspection take? Is it 2 hours, 3 hours, and I guess some of that depends on the size of the house and how many issues there are.
Good question. Again, you hit it. It's usually from 2 to 3 hours on most just average size homes. But yeah, the bigger, the older, that definitely plays in. It could go up to 4 or 5 hours. I think we had an 8,000 square foot home we did a couple months ago. And there was 2 inspectors there, and they were there all day. I think it took them like 7 or 8 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, the size has a lot to do with it, because then there's more heat systems involved, more electrical panels and all that. But just an average size home, you're looking anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. So, if you want to have, like we were talking about before, if the client can't come for the whole inspection, anytime we start the inspection, you can have the client come, 2 to 3 hours after we start, and that would be a good time for the walkthrough.
Okay. So that being said, can you usually do, like, depending on the size of the home, a couple of inspections a day? Because I know then you have to also do the report, which takes time.
Yeah, it does. And we've tried to get our reports out within 24 hours from the inspection. So we do 2 a day. That makes that challenging. So a lot of the guys do 2 a day, and we try to really, that's where Martha comes in. That's where she's so great, because she coordinates the houses if they do 2 a day, where they're hopefully a little bit kind of close to each other. They're not really that big, and she knows how to coordinate the days where it's not loading the inspector up too much. But usually we'll only do 2 max a day, just because I feel like to do a good inspection for our clients. If you do more than that, then the inspector starts to get into a hurry, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
We've always kind of really worked really hard not to get in a hurry and just to take our time when we're doing home inspections, because when you get in a hurry, that's when you start missing things. So yeah, 2 is the max we'll do, but you can definitely do 2 a day. Absolutely.
I think buyers are kind of surprised when you tell them that, the inspection report's usually available 24 hours, after the inspection's done. So that's great. I commend, all y'all inspectors for turning around this so quickly, because this can be, a make it or break it for some buyers, and they need to know quickly if they should move forward or not with a home. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We know with the due diligence period,
Yes.
we realize that by the time we get there, we need to kind of get it back to you quickly, because I know you guys are not given very much time for your turnarounds these days. So that's the reason we do that.
So I have a question that's not on the list, but so what are the most common repairs that you find in homes? Like, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 that you find?
Decks not being built correctly. We find that a lot. Dirty return air filters for the heat system. We see that a lot. There's really a lot. I mean, almost every home we have,
cracks in the foundation.
Yeah, there's a lot of cracks in the foundation.
I mean, there are, though, and people think that they're a bigger deal than they are sometimes, a lot of the times,
Yeah.
I was wondering if
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was wondering if the loose toilet, loose that was the number one, because that's the one I always see a lot, or loose
that
toilet.
one. Yeah, that one comes up a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. There's probably more like 10 every house. It's pretty common that you can pretty much bank on it. The negative slopes, you probably see that all the time.
Oh yeah, that's a good
negative
one.
slopes. The grading around the house, there's always negative slopes. I mean,
breakers that don't match the box.
Yeah.
I see that quite a bit.
Yeah, we see that a lot. There's always going to be at least one window that doesn't open correctly. There's probably going to be at least one cloudy window somewhere in the house. So yeah, that's pretty common.
So would you recommend, if somebody is going to be listing their house and maybe it's an older house and they have concerns, about issues that might come up, do you all do a lot of pre-listing inspections, or do you recommend that to?
Yes, we do. And yes, I do recommend that, because, and it's like everyone that calls us and they say, we just want to know if there's anything wrong with the house before we list it. And that's such a great way to look at it. And yeah, that we can come in and show you what's going on with the house, and then you can make the repairs before you list it, before that frightens a potential home buyer away. You've already addressed it and taken care of it, and it's good to share that with them too, and say, here, we had a home inspection, he or she found this, and we fixed it, and so now we feel good about the house being a great house for you. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, and a lot of people are starting to do that more and more.
Lisa, did you have any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was very helpful, and I mean, I feel like I learned some things today.
Me too.
And that's why I love doing these videos too, is because I learn things, and hopefully folks that watch this will find it informative, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching the video. This is Lisa, Bonnie, and Joe. Have a great day.
Bye.